Hi guys and welcome to this episode of GSP. In this episode we'll be talking about the recent England-Switzerland game that England won 2-0. What we're going to do is we're going to go through each player, 1 to 11, and talk about their performances one by one. So Dom, if you start us off with Joe Hart.
Well, I think Joe Hart had a pretty solid game. I mean, didn't have a lot to do. I mean, England had a lot of the ball, but when he was called upon, he really responded. Made 2 really good saves, especially when he was one-on-one. He just stuck out that leg. That was a good save,
And
also
that one over the bar.
he calmed it
That was
up.
a brilliant save.
I mean, so Joe had a good solid game. I'd have to give him like a 7 or 8. I mean, he didn't do enough to earn a higher rating than that, though, did he?
Well, yeah, 8 out of 10, but he did all the things that he was asked of exceptionally. I don't think you can fault him, really.
No. So we'll work from right to left. Stones had his first competitive game in an England shirt at right back. I think he had a pretty decent game, a few slips, but he was pretty solid, wasn't he?
Yeah, he had an alright game. He made a couple of slip-ups, but he did alright, and he's expected to be a bit rusty. He just started the season, doesn't play every week for Everton, so you expect him to be a bit sort of sketchy at times. But on a side note, I don't see how England and Roy Hodgson can justify picking a player that doesn't even get in Everton's team. You've got Seamus Coleman, who some people say is the best right back in the Premier League. However, it's Everton. You can't pick a player for England that doesn't even get in the Everton team. What is that saying about the English national side at the moment?
Yeah, well, definitely struggling. I mean, maybe even pushing Jones out to right back and putting Jagielka and Cahill in the middle would be a bit better than playing Stones. But on the right side of the defence was Phil Jones, making kind of his first competitive start with Cahill in the heart of the England defence. I really like Jones personally. I think Jones is going to be a really good centre-back. But he had that one big slip which let that guy clean through on Hart in the first half, or maybe second half. But he did recover well. He made a few good clearances. I like Jones.
He's got a lot to prove at the moment, Jones. He's been given a bit of stick along with Smalling because of his big money move across to Manchester United. But this season he's absolutely vital for Manchester United. People know that Louis van Gaal wants to sort of play this 2 wing backs and 3 centre backs, and everyone knows that he's going to be in that defence in that 3.
Yeah.
So yeah, he's vital for England and Manchester United going forward now. So it's going to be make or break for Phil Jones. If he rises to the challenge, we could have a really good centre back, but then again he might sort of cave under the pressure. But we'll just have to wait to see with him.
Yeah, definitely. But Cahill, on the other hand, had a really, really good game. I mean, Gary Cahill was England's best centre-back by an absolute mile. I mean, that goal line clearance that he made in that second half was absolutely unbelievable.
Yeah, he did really well. Like, you saw the difference in class between him and Jones there. Jones sort of threw his hands up in the air and sort of gave up on the ball, sort of was more worried about appealing to the ref than he was actually, that old saying, play to the whistle, whereas Cahill was flying backwards, and if he hadn't have been, it would have been a goal for Switzerland. So, and then we'll move across to Baines. One of the most solid players there is, really.
I mean, at times I thought he got a bit too far forward, and he's not showing that quality that he had at the back end of, like, not last season, the season before. I mean, he needs to find that form again. He's been slipping up recently, and I'm not too sure about Baines. I think once Luke Shaw comes in, I think Luke Shaw will be England's left back for maybe the next 10 years.
Like, people forget about Baines, that he's actually getting on a bit now.
He's 30 next month.
30, yeah. So he's not going to be around forever. So I see what you mean. I think you might be being a bit harsh on Baines there. He didn't do anything particularly wrong in the game. He didn't have his best game, but then again, he probably didn't need to. We have to remember it was Switzerland. I know they are higher ranked than us in the world, etc. But let's be honest, they haven't really got that much quality in their side. But yeah, he did all right, Baines, but nothing to write home about. But yeah, I think I agree with you. I think he's sort of come at the wrong time, Baines. He was not as good as Ashley Cole, and in probably a year's time he won't be as good as Shaw. So I think when Shaw starts to get back to full fitness, Baines will move away and Shaw will come in and do the same role that Ashley Cole did, be in that left back position.
Yep, absolutely. Holding midfield was Jack Wilshere, which is an unfamiliar role for Wilshere. He tends to play more attacking, but I think he did an alright job. I mean, he's not the best tackler in the world, and he's not as good defensively as like your Carricks or Gerrard was like before he retired. But I like Wilshere playing there. I think if he could play there, he should play there.
Well, that's the thing for Wilshere. I think the way that Arsenal set up, and they've got Ozil and Cazorla, who are attacking midfielders that are they're better than him. Let's be honest, they are better than him. So they'll be getting picked ahead of him for Arsenal, and then Aaron Ramsey's in there as well. So if Jack Wilshere's looking for a position that he wants to sort of stamp his authority on, and he wants to stay at Arsenal and wants to play there for England, he's going to have to establish himself as a holding midfield player. For me, he isn't that position though. He's an old-fashioned central midfielder, and that sort of 4-4-2 formation would be best for Jack Wilshere, but that formation doesn't really exist anymore. So he's just going to have to adapt. Jack Wilshere needs to be a holding midfield player, and that's what his club and country are asking from him. So that's just what he's going to have to do.
But he didn't perform too badly, did he, against Switzerland? Didn't make too many errors, and he did get forward at times as well.
See, I'm not sure. I don't think he had his best game with Jack Wilshere. He gives, at the moment, it seems to give the ball away a lot. Before he had that serious injury, he was a bit of a different player to me. Sort of, he's starting to get back that sort of burst of pace going forwards, and he runs brilliantly with a sort of big wide open chest because he's looking about where to pass it. It's like a quarterback does in NFL. But yeah, there's no doubt about it. He's a class player, but he's just got to get that good consistent run of form that I think everyone knows that he needs, and then he should get back to being the player that we know he can be.
Well, absolutely. Either side of him were Henderson and Delph. Delph making his competitive debut for England also, and picking up that horrendous yellow card in the 9th minute. I mean, that was a reckless challenge early on, and he could have been booked before that as well.
Yeah, the referee sort of gave him a final warning on about 5 minutes, and that's just not the way you want to be in the game, because then you're thinking about it all the time. And if it had come to a moment where he needed to make a professional foul, he makes the professional foul. He's off after that. So it was very. I think that was a sort of thing of trying to impress. He wanted to get a good sort of
half hour under his belt.
Yeah, a good start to the game, so he could settle into it. But with that, he didn't, and he never really got into the motion of the game. He's quite good at running with the ball and passing it, but I think the occasion got to him a little bit.
Yeah, he definitely had that big adrenaline rush as soon as he got on the pitch.
Yeah, the big lights type thing.
Yeah, but
moving across to Catamount. Henderson.
Catamount. Henderson, well, he did really well at covering Stones. When Stones lost possession, you could see he was playing quite defensive and pushing out to that right just to cover the potential danger from the left wing. But Henderson didn't do too much wrong. I mean, well, didn't see him a lot really.
Yeah, there's not a lot to say about his performance really, was there? There's not a thing that stands out that Henderson did particularly well or particularly badly.
Yeah,
he's definitely getting better at those sort of 40-yard passes and the really amazing things that Gerrard used to do. I think that's worked well with them sort of playing together at Liverpool. Gerrard can sort of bring Henderson up, and Henderson can take over the captaincy there if it came about, or whatever. He can just develop there really well with Gerrard leaving.
Yep, so at the top of that diamond, kind of in the middle of the park, was Sterling, and I haven't been convinced by Sterling in an England shirt yet. I mean, he had a good World Cup. He was England's best player at the World Cup. But he's yet to score a goal. He did assist. So
he had an alright game, but I don't think that's his position. I like him more out on the wide, but I don't think attacking midfield's really his position. He's not in that sort of attacking midfield player. You haven't got to be a big, strong player, but you've got to sort of be able to get the ball and pass it more. Whereas Sterling's more of one of those players who gets the ball and wants to run at people. Whereas your likes of your Cazorlas and your David Silvas, they get the ball and they know where they're passing it already. Like when people analyse Xavi, they watch him when he's off the ball and his head is sort of like this, looking at where the next pass is going to be. Whereas Sterling wants to get the ball and then looking at the ball and just trying to beat people. So attacking midfield's not his position.
I think Sterling should be better on the wing. I mean, he's got unbelievable strength for his size. Like, he just seems to bounce off players. He just bounces off players and they try to hit into him and he stays up. Like Barami took a lot of time to bring him down. I remember at one point, and that's like Barami, like he's a big lad.
Right, so now we'll talk about Wayne Rooney, obviously England's captain. I've been quite impressed by the interviews that he's given at the end of the games, actually. I sort of thought Rooney's a bit sort of like a bit hard to speak to, and when he does interviews he comes across as really boring. But when he's done the interviews at the end of both games, we've both sort of thought, oh, he's actually been quite articulate there. Like, he's actually just talked about the game properly and had all the team in a huddle before the game, telling them like what he expects and stuff like that. I thought he's done a really good job as captain in his first couple of games.
Yeah, so do I. I mean, I think Rooney's a good player, and he showed that again. I mean, he's like proved that he should be worthy of his England spot, I think. And also, I've been hearing that he's actually been holding team talks without the manager and coaches that, and if that's true, then that's absolutely great. I mean, getting that team chemistry up together and getting them playing as like a unit and getting them talking about one another, I think that's really good. And I think Rooney is doing absolutely blinding as a captain point of view anyway.
Well, yeah, I was quite sort of apprehensive about it when it got announced that Rooney was captain, just because of his sort of like previous, because he's quite dull. Previous incidents that he's had, like with the 2006 World Cup, it's just one to point out.
Montenegro, a couple of years ago.
Yeah, and but I just wasn't sure about that, and I never really like it when the striker's the captain. Like, if I had to choose it, I know, because even Rooney's getting on a little bit, I'd have chosen Cahill personally, but just because I prefer it when it's a centre back or central midfielder. But anyway, he's done a really good job to begin with and proved me wrong. So yeah, I'm happy that Rooney's the captain, and now let's move on to Danny Welbeck, Dom.
Yeah, I think Welbeck scored both the goals. I mean, one of them came off his shin, admittedly. Still managed to put it in the back of the net. That's what he needs to do as a striker. The second one was absolutely great finish, where he opened his body up and got enough loft to get it over the keeper when he was almost off balance, wasn't he?
Well, yeah, it's one of those ones that it seems like you have to wait an eternity for the ball to get to him. It was sort of coming across, and then he just managed to hook it around the goalkeeper. But the first one, people say, oh yeah, it was a shin, it was lucky. But he actually had to bust the gut to be there, and he did really well to get to the ball. And all it needed, it didn't matter what it was, all it needed was some part of his body to touch it, and he got that touch on the ball. And if you hadn't scored that goal, you'd have been looking at a very different game.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it was kind of the saviour, I guess, then, of England against Switzerland. But if you agree with us, let us know in the comments, and we will reply to you. But yeah, thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next episode.